I am going to put this on YouTube if I can. Okay, so your group test. Solve each triangle. What does it mean to solve the triangle? Find all missing sides and all missing angles, right? So I know one angle. This is not a right triangle though, so I cannot use Pythagorean theorem. I cannot use SOHCAHTOA. That leaves me with law of sines or law of cosines. Law of sines I can only use if I have an angle and a side matching. Because I have to put, let's see, sine of 103 over 47 and set that equal to another fraction. Now the only other fraction that makes sense to use would be sine p over 29 because they give me one of those pieces of information. So I'm going to do sine p over 29 and cross multiplying. That gives me 29 sine 103 equals 47 sine p. And I need to get p by itself, so I need to get sine p by itself. So I'm going to divide by 47. And now I'm going to my calculator. So let's see. 29 sine 103 divided by 47. So this is what sine of p equals. 0.60120700613 equals sine p. So how do I find p at this point? Inverse sine. So I'm going to do inverse sine of that decimal. And I'm going to use my answer button on here because I don't want to have to round off that decimal. So second sine and then the previous answer. And that means, let's see, what are we rounding off? Rounding to the nearest tenth. So 36.95 would round off to 37.0, right? And that is angle P. Please put the degree measures on angles. I didn't mark off on that on the group test, but I haven't decided if I'll mark off on that on the individual test. Put degree measures, put units of measurement, etc. Okay, how can I find angle R now? 180 minus 37 minus 103, right? That leaves that one at 40 degrees. Questions there? All right. I just did 180 minus 37 minus 103.
What does that equal?
40.
No, was that for angle R?
Yeah. Because remember, all three angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So if you know two of them, you just subtract the two you know, and what's left has to be the one you don't know.
Why did you use sine?
This was the law of sines.
Oh, okay.
So law of sines has to be sine of an angle over the side opposite. Sine of an angle over the side opposite. What was I going to say? Oh, some groups lost a point here because, actually I think it was more so on the next problem, but if you round it off, and then you round it off to apply to the next one, some people ended up with numbers that don't add up to 180. They ended up with numbers that added up to like 179.9. And so to me it didn't really make sense. Why would you not have numbers that exactly equal 180? It should work out. Even if you're rounding it off, you should still get the other one. You know, if you have a 0.3, you should have a 0.7 to make sure that it gets to a full number. All right, last one we need to find is R. That would be this side right here, little r. So let's see, I'm going to use this right here again because it's given to us. So sine q, which is 103, over 47 is equal to, now I don't like using numbers that I already found or that I had to find in the last step, but I don't think I can avoid it at this point. That's 40 degrees, so I would say sine 40 over little r. And using my cross multiplying, I would have r times sine 103 equals 47 sine 40. Divide by sine 103. And that'll give me what r is. So let's see, 47 sine 40 divided by sine of 103. And I get 31.00, so we're just going to call that 31 kilometers. Again, please label your answers either with a degree symbol or kilometers or whatever. Now this was a 9-point question, which means that that answer was worth 3 points, that answer was worth 3 points, that answer was worth 3 points. Because it's basically 3 problems you're doing in one. Yes?
How many did you get marked out of your
You missed like 1 out of the 3 for that number. Okay, next one. We know all 3 sides. We do not know anything about the angles though. This one we have to use law of cosines for. Remember law of cosines? With the law of cosines, Cheyenne, this is for you. With the law of cosines, you use law of cosines when you either have side, 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 or if you have side, angle, side. Now here I had 2 sides and an angle, but the angle was not between those 2 sides, which is why we could use law of sines. If you have 2 sides and an angle that's between them, then you can use law of cosines. Unfortunately, I don't have that luxury here. So I'm going to start off by trying to find angle x. So here's how I do angle x. I have to take side x, that's what goes by itself on one side. And then on the other side, I have 12 squared plus 13 squared minus 12 times, minus 2. Let me fix that. Thank goodness for whiteout. Minus 2 times 12 times 13 times the cosine of x. So I have 81 equals 144 plus 169 minus 312 cosine x. So 81 equals 144, let's see, 313 is what I get when I add these two together, minus 312 cosine x. Move the 313. That gives me negative 232 equals negative 312 cosine x. Still trying to get that cosine x by itself so that I can use inverse cosine to solve it. So I'm going to divide by negative 312. And that gives me, let's see, 0.744 something. I have it all rounded off on my notes, so let's see, 232 divided by negative 312. 7.744 is what that would round off to. You can't see that. So I'm just going to say that equals cosine x. And now I want to do the inverse cosine of that 0.744 to get me x. So second cosine of the answer, 41.96. What is that going to round off to? 42 degrees. And that's for angle x. That would round off to 42 or 42.0 degrees. Questions on how I found x? Okay, you do need to know how to use law of sines and law of cosines tomorrow. You notice the formulas weren't given to you, so you're going to have to figure them out. At this point, I don't need to use law of cosines again. I can use law of sines because now I know that this is 42. So I can do sine of 42 over the side opposite and set it equal to whichever one I want to find. Let's say I wanted to find z. I would say sine z over the side opposite is 13. So if I solve that, that gets me, let's see, 13 sine 42 equals, I have to write this way because I ran out of room, 9 sine z divided by 9. So sine of z is equal to 13 sine 42 divided by 9, 0.967 if I rounded that off. I'm not going to round it off on my calculator and do my inverse sine. And so inverse sine of that previous answer gives me 75.1 degrees. So that's angle Z, 75.1 degrees. And I think I was a little bit lenient. If you got 75, I gave you credit for that. That was fine. So now this is the one where people didn't get numbers that added up to 180. So I'm going to take 180 and subtract the two angles I know, the 42 degrees and the 75.1. That leaves me with 62.9 degrees for my last angle. Questions there? Yes? No? All right. Next question, number 3, messed with people. They kept wanting to use law of sines and law of cosines. You don't have to use either of those because this is a right triangle, which means with a right triangle, now we can use Pythagorean theorem, we can use SOHCAHTOA, we can use all the easy stuff. We don't need to use law of sines or cosines. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do, let's see, I'm going to do Pythagorean theorem. 10 squared plus 13 squared equals c squared. It does say round to the nearest tenth, so decimals are okay. 100 plus 169 is 269. So I would square root to find c. Let's see, the square root of 269 is 16.4. So c is 16.4. There is no measurement on it, so I don't need to worry about writing feet or centimeters or whatever. And then, let's see, find a measure of angle A or B. I'm going to find A first, just because it comes first alphabetically. I'm going to use what's given to me. So I have opposite, and I have adjacent. What uses opposite and adjacent? Tangent, right? So I'm going to say tangent of A is equal to opposite over adjacent. 10 over 13. So then I use my inverse tangent. Uh, 10 divided by 13. And that gives me 37.56, which I would round off to 37 point what? 6 degrees. And once I have two of the angles, I just subtract from 180. So 180 minus 37.6 minus 90, and the last angle is 52.4 degrees. Questions on that guy? That was a 6-point question. Therefore, each one of these were worth 2 points each. Why was it a little bit less points? Because it's not as hard as using law of sines or law of cosines. Okay. And then number 4 was pretty easy. Most people got this one. Tangent of theta. You notice they have marked theta there. Again, using SOHCAHTOA, I need opposite, which would be 18, and adjacent would be 6. So tangent of theta equals 18 over 6, which is what? 3. So your answer there, 3. Don't need to label it degrees, don't need to label it anything. It's just tangent of theta equals 3. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording.